Yeah, Gautam, can you please play that short video?
Yes, Suyog.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, thanks Gautam for the video. So right now, under these several segments, we are we are in this segment of talk series Nurturing Bird. In this segment, we invite the personalities who made a notable contributions in science, outreach, and education towards the upliftment of the society. Dr. Anil Kakodkar is the first speaker of this talk series. I must say the progress of SFRI wouldn't have been possible without the support from faculties at IISc. Among these faculties, our Dean, Professor Anil Kumar, always shares an encouragement with us. Now I request Professor Anil Kumar, Dean, Administration and Finance, to introduce the guest. Over to you,
Yeah,
Anil, sir.
thank you, Mr. Suyak. First of all, let me congratulate the students of IAC for successfully conducting this event. And we have none other than Dr. Anil Kakodkar for this first talk in this series. And I have great privilege to introduce Professor Anil Kakodkar for this event. And Dr. Anil Kakodkar is a renowned Indian nuclear physicist and mechanical engineer who put India in the top league of nuclear capable nations. Dr. Kakodkar obtained his BE in mechanical engineering degree from Bombay University in 1963 and MSc in the experimental stress analysis from Nottingham University in 1969. Dr. Anil Kakodkar is a fellow of the Indian National Science Academy, Indian Academy of Science, National Academy of Science India, and Maharashtra Academy of Science. He was awarded Padma Shri in 1998, Padma Bhushan in 1999, and Padma Vibhushan, India's second highest civilian honor in 2009 by Government of India. Dr. Kakodkar was the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission of India and the secretary to the Government of India. He was also the director of the Baba Atomic Research Center in Mumbai. Dr. Kakodkar has been an advocate of self-reliance for India in atomic energy production and was a key contributor to the development of India's atomic energy program. He was involved in the first successful peaceful nuclear explosion experiment conducted by India in 1974 at Pokhran, and later he played a key role in the series of successful nuclear tests conducted during 1998. Being an advocate of self-reliance for India in atomic energy production, Dr. Kakodkar has devoted his time to energy, education, and social development issues. He has boosted the deployment of technologies for a better quality of life for both rural and urban populations. His philosophy and concept of Shillage, a knowledge-based ecosystem for bridging city and village gaps for technology-enabled sustainable development in rural areas, has encouraged many young minds to contribute to society. And it is very apt for the IIC students to invite Dr. Anil Kakodkar for this event. Sir, welcome to this event.
Thank you. Let me share my presentation because just 1 minute. What's happening? It's not.
Adjacent to the leave button, there is an up arrow.
Yeah, I did that.
And then you have to share the desktop, not the program, desktop, and then select the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I think this. Let me. Has it come?
Yes, it's coming up, sir. Yeah, it has come.
Good. You have the full screen, right?
It's coming up. We see the single slide now. The full screen has not come yet.
Okay. Anyway, I suppose it will come or.
Yes, yes, you can proceed, sir.
Yeah. So thank you, Professor Anil Kumar, and also Dr. Mahulkar and all colleagues involved in this wonderful group, Science for Rural India. And I have been asked to share few things about this concept of silage, which I have been working on for some time. And this is a subject fairly close to my heart. One of the three verticals, other two being energy and education, on which I spend most of my time these days. So silage is nothing else but a knowledge-inspired ecosystem for transforming rural India. And I think this is a worthwhile outreach for higher education institutions. And we just saw the video of the Science for Rural India. I think excellent program. One could imagine looking at that video. So congratulations. Let me get on with my presentation.
Sir,
Now,
you may have to share your presentation once again because somebody else in between started sharing, so that we lost your presentation.
1 minute. Let me.
I think his screen is showing this.
Yeah. Sir, you can share once again.
I will.
The desktop you can share, then you can select the PowerPoint rather than sharing the PowerPoint.
1 minute.
Sir,
Rajesh, can you stop the video? We think.
Dr. Rajesh Vatsa, if you can just hello.
I think there is some confusion here. 1 minute.
I think Rajesh's video just came on his screen. So
I will disconnect and rejoin again right from the beginning. I think that
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Yeah, sure, sir.
Excuse me, sir. Yeah, if there is an issue in sharing the PPT, I have the same file. I can share it for you.
That would be great.
I think he left. Okay, we'll wait for him to join
Sure.
again.
Sure.
request all the guests to turn down the cameras, please.
Sir, you're muted. Your microphone is muted.
Yeah, has it come? My presentation has come?
It has come, sir.
Yes.
Can you move to the full screen, sir?
Yeah, I will do that. Is okay?
Yes, this is perfect.
So let's restart again. So what you have on this, you are seeing the slide, history of world GDP?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay. So if you look at this history, it's clear that India was #1 country in the agrarian era, and we somehow could not cope up in the industrial era. Uh, Now, there may be many reasons, and it's not necessary to go into those reasons, but the fact is that the relative GDP of India with respect to the world as a whole became very insignificant, and it only started rising after India got independence. Now we are in a knowledge era, and the challenge or the question is, can we catch up in the knowledge era? Now, this catching up has two components in my view. One, being able to catch up with the best in the world, because we are living in a competitive uh, world, and I think we have to be in the forefront uh, to be counted, to protect our interests, and also uh, kind of carry forward with our time-tested philosophy. The second component, of course, is equally important in my view, and that is to be able to bridge the internal disparities. And that's what I want to focus in today's presentation. And that is not a small challenge. It's, of course, it has again many dimensions, science, technology being one of them. But we will focus only on areas which are relevant to us. And in the process of addressing the disparities, uh, I think it's important that we concentrate on rural India, because disparities of various types, but the urban-rural divide almost captures all kinds of disparities, as I will show you. And so it's important that uh, we should be focused on rural India, very important in Indian context. Now, while we are doing that, I think we should recognize that India at 75, that's what we are celebrating right now. Uh, let's take stock. We have several achievements, we have several challenges. The largest democracy, and democracy has taken roots in India. Second largest population, a very large market, one of the largest economies, and geopolitically a very important country. India is among the top in terms of agriculture or horticultural products, in terms of electricity production, coal production, steel production. It's not the top, but it's in the top bracket. It's a signature of the size of our country. Same thing is true with respect to the road network, railway network, IT and communication industry, entertainment industry, and so on and so forth. Now, India's GDP, it consists of half coming from service sector, 1/3 coming from industry, half of it coming from manufacturing, and 1/6 coming from agriculture sector. And important to notice that a small fraction, but an important fraction, something like 17.5 million Indian diaspora, it contributes to 3.4% of India's GDP. And so it's sort of it's an important thing to notice in terms of per capita contribution of Indian diaspora. Now, talking about disparity, which I had mentioned, some indicators are the following: income share, uh, 10 to 11% income share is with top 0.1%, and 22% income share is with top 1%. And in terms of per urban income. So that is the main point which I was talking about. Now, having said that, I think we should also notice that Gini index in rural areas is actually higher. So our rural area is poor, but disparity is even higher. And both urban areas as well as rural area, the Gini index of income is actually rising, meaning disparities are rising. A feature of this, and you can see this in several sectors. I just picked up medical. India boasts of medical tourism, while our ranking in healthcare has slipped to 150th place. Our Human Development Index still stands at around 129, while our neighbor Sri Lanka is at 71. So those are the challenges we have. Now, this is clearly reflected in strong discordance between wealth creation on one side, we are a growing economy, and the equity in opportunities on the other. And that's the challenge we need to address. And this leads to a lot of instabilities or the cliff edge situations. And we see this time and again, the distress reverse migration, which we saw during the recent pandemic, is one such thing. But the climate crisis which you are facing is another thing on a global scale. And there are similar things, the way the economic situation, both in India as well as the rest of the world is, I think these situations are existing. And some of these indicators are not restricted to India. They are there all over the world. And I think we need to understand them and do something about it. Higher wealth creation and equity in opportunity at the at the base of socio-economic pyramid is the key, and that's the solution we are looking forward to. Rural domain, where the larger share of our population still resides, thus needs a deeper attention. Now, education is extremely important, as the SFRI has very clearly recognized. And in that context, I'll just want to quote H.G. Wells, who said, civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. And we must leverage our demographic dividend through right quality education before it is too late. And that's where this subject is very important. So let us see what the higher education institution can or should do in this context. To my mind, higher education institution need to be both knowledge creators as well as value creators. And if you look at the science technology indicators published by a DST, they publish it every year, you would notice that we are doing pretty well in terms of knowledge creation, publication record. We are probably, our rate of publication are growing perhaps at the fastest pace. And I think our publications, they stand at number 3 globally. So, and of course, progressively, this, I'm sure it will go higher. So I personally feel we are doing quite well in terms of knowledge creation. But unfortunately, in my view, that is not the case in terms of value creation. And although recent years, there is significant emphasis on innovation, on startups, and things have started moving in the right direction, we have a lot of things to catch up. Now, in terms of value creation, I put this in essentially in three levels. At the top level is the R&D intensive high technology, uh, and that constitutes the main engine of economic growth in today's world. No, we are all talking about artificial intelligence, big data, machine learning, and so on and so forth. And these are all, the knowledge domains have transformed into major technology domains, and we are all witnessing the impact they are having. And India also is having a fair share of these activities. But then there are other knowledge domains which are fast emerging, like genetics, quantum physics, cognition, brain sciences, and so on. And these knowledge domains are about to get transformed into very important and kind of game-changing technologies, which has already started happening, and that is what is actually deciding the value creation globally. That is the main thrust of value creation, and I think it's a question for us to ponder whether we are also working in this area. I know there's a lot of things happening, but the gap between what's happening in India, not in terms of knowledge creation, I'm talking about in terms of value creation, whether the gap between India and the best in the world is increasing or or closing is something that we need to ponder over. At the second level, we have uh, the supporting core economies, the support coming partly from muscle power, partly from the nerve related work, knowledge related activity, and marginal brain activity. So partly muscle power, partly special skills, partly brain activity. But now this is a domain where I think India is certainly doing quite well. Uh, but in this global context, in looking at the front runners in the economic progress, I would say this would be at best of peripheral importance. The third level is, of course, providing raw materials, ores, raw mineral oil, which of course is losing importance, and of course, the labor, the body shopping. And India, of course, is making a big kind of earning out of this. Now, if you look at on the whole, everything put together, I think India presently, on an average, to me, it appears between 1 and 2, maybe a little closer to 2, but somewhere in between there. Now, recognizing these three levels of knowledge creation, obviously, the knowledge intensity is higher as you move from 3 to 2 to 1. Uh, but we should also recognize that the exploitation potential, that was right from the independent era, the, the, the dawn of independence, or for example, Mahatma Gandhi has been always talking about uh, the the industry becoming exploitative, and so he was talking about village self-reliance and kind of empowering the villages. So the fact is that as you go to higher technology levels, knowledge technology levels, the exploitation potential also grows up. Uh, and while technology or knowledge empowers humans, that empowerment of human beings, whether it will become exploitative or it will contribute to global well-being, it actually depends on the upbringing of human beings. And so to my mind, while the knowledge level decides the quality, but uh, that also decides, what kind of human values get inculcated is also an equally important factor in terms of identifying or defining quality of education. And quality of higher education should be such, it should be accessible to all, and that would be the key. That holistic quality would be the key to eliminate disparities. Otherwise, technologies can actually widen the disparities, as the experience has shown us. So with that background, let us look at rural domain. Uh, this is essentially from the data from the socio-economic caste census of 2011, and I hope the new data will be available soon. But in India, we have approximately 18 crore rural households, and the point to note is we say rural economy, and that's the basis of the uh, the people kind of their livelihood in villages. But the fact remains that there are only one third of households which can manage themselves through the agricultural income. And the reason is, for there may be, I think the agricultural holdings are there with more than 50% people in rural areas, but most of them, the holding is very small, so uh, it cannot support uh, running of the households. So one third households run on agricultural income, and almost 50%, little more than 50% household, they run on essentially manual casual labor. Granting that labor in farms in agricultural domain is also a part of their labor activity plus some other activities, but essentially they work in others' farms, not in their own farms. And I think these two parameters are very important to recognize. Now, in that context, the opportunities for earning in rural areas, agriculture being one, allied activities, uh, uh, the dairy, animal husbandry, and so on and so forth, it being second, poultry. Um, Value addition to agri produce is the third important thing, and they're all related to agricultural domain. Now, I think in knowledge era, one could also leverage the other two segments of economy, the industrial activities, because in knowledge era, everything can be decentralized, including manufacturing, for example, uh, 3D printing, additive manufacture, and so on. And so there is no reason why agricultural domain we can't make youth capable, make them enough sufficiently knowledgeable to participate in manufacturing activities, and of course most certainly in the service sector activities. Whatever has happened to India's economy through IT sector, I think same thing can happen to India's economy through IT sector if we empower rural youth, which is to some extent is happening, but I think if it happens in totality, it will make a big difference to the economy of rural domain and also economy of India. So the short point is that we need to carry out capacity building of human resource well beyond the traditional rural agri domain and expose particularly the young people to new age opportunities. That is the key. For example, we can quickly enlarge contribution from service sector or contribution to service sector from rural domain, and that could be transformative, but so also other areas. So I think that should be the thrust. Now, of course, it has to begin with the traditional opportunities available in villages and reach the level which I just mentioned. And it is in that context that we need to create an ecosystem where we can support a sustainable integrated block level development. Why block level development? Because block is a convenient administrative unit for bottom up development process. And if we do that through synergy between education, research and development, I believe we can really make a difference to the whole domain, as I was mentioning earlier. So the idea was to kind of think about a silage ecosystem and allow it to, I'll talk about some of the elements of this ecosystem, but uh, I strongly sort of advocate that we should not regiment this, because anything regimented, I think, starts getting into its own degenerative process. So we should recognize various elements of such an ecosystem and allow it to be sort of be adopted naturally by people. So I'll talk about these ecosystem elements, and everybody can think about it based on their own circumstances, their own strong points, weak points, and so on. So the plan should be to set up a silage, and this is better located at a higher technical education or a university, but located in rural domain in that block somewhere. So everywhere you may not have, every block may not have a university, but we can certainly find an higher education institution. And if such institution are, I think, ideal for hosting this silage ecosystem. Now, this development has to, or this ecosystem has to be in a kind of a hub and spoke model. So with that silage as a hub at the education institution, we should have number of satellite centers, which I call Akruti. This is a term, when in BARC is promoting this Akruti development program, and we'll talk about it as we go along. But these are essentially the technology demonstrations or practice centers in surrounding villages, acronym for Advanced Knowledge Enabled Rural Technology Initiative. So if you have a hub and spoke model of a silage at an education institution or a university, and several satellites, Akruti center, and with an arrangement for microfinance, because I think we expect a lot of self-help groups to be associated with these Akruti centers. And if you have such an ecosystem, uh, actually we tried an experiment with a small uh, kind of a geographical unit, and I'll talk about that. And then we're kind of trying to experiment this on a progressively larger unit reaching up to a block size. So the first such experiment was carried out at Pandharpur at the Shri Vitthal Education and Research Institute, Gopalpur, which is a place near Pandharpur in Maharashtra. And there, a rural human and resource development facility was set up with surrounding 7 Akruti centers, and they worked in something like 35 villages, impacting around 2,000 farmers. In parallel, they also looked at
Sir, I think you are muted. Can you please unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. So the National Knowledge Network established a node at Sweri, this institution, and from there a kind of a long-range broadband connectivity was established to the schools, and the schools were distributed with Akash tablets at that time. And I think some interesting work took place uh, in the context of both rural livelihood as well as school education, technology enabled school education. Now, this exercise was backed up by a somewhat largish level uh, activity in livelihood domain. It was done by BIOF, and one node of BIOF activity was the same, say in the same area as the node at Pandharpur. But it had other, because this was 4 districts in the state of Maharashtra, which engaged something like uh, 2,200 villages, 2,200 households in 60 villages, covering a land area of something like 1,100 acres. So this experiment ran for some years. To some extent, it is continuing even now on a self-sustained basis. And you can see the glimpse of the activities that were carried out. There is technology information which was reached, essentially technology from BARC. They have an Akruti Tech Pack, uh, which is an ongoing program which is taken to villages and they are made familiar with this technology. And then we encourage local innovation. They take that technology, but they put it in practice in their own way. And there are several kind of benefits of that, but most importantly, it creates a kind of ownership on the technology. And on the school education, again, a lot of activities were done, both in terms of hands-on activities as well as uh, reaching the content through the digital medium. And I think this the idea is we did try out a reasonable scale exercise which could be scaled up further. And that was done while the Pandharpur activity is still going on.
Excuse me,
But
sir. Sorry to
hello.
interrupt. Sir, your screen is not full screen. Can you please do the full screen? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, 1 minute. Okay, got it?
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next experiment was at Gadchiroli. Gadchiroli, as you know, a very thickly forested tribal belt. There is also a bit of Naxal activity there. Uh, and there is a new university there, Gondwana University, Gadchiroli. And so there at the university, a science technology resource center was established, and that has been working in the following thematic areas: aquaculture, bamboo craft, non-timber forest produce. And there is also an incubation program, an academic program, community support program, and so on. And in this, of course, we have a great support from IIT Bombay, both Sitara as well as the Bamboo Studio of the design center, and there are other institutions like MAFSU has brought in a lot of technologies, and many other institutions. Now, this is a work in progress, but I think they have made very good progress. And you can visit the website Gondwana in gug.strc, and you will be able to see the activities of this place. And so we're quite sure that it's a very challenging exercise to doing this in an existing setup where mindsets of kind of traditional mindsets you have to transform into kind of getting into the new ways of thinking, but things are changing. And then we said, okay, now we are ready for the bigger exercise. So we are now attempting a block level exercise in Nandurbar. A number of villages, 50% in hilly areas, 50% in the plain areas, but both tribal. And there is a tribal academy under the Kaviyatri Bahinabai North Maharashtra University at Nandurbar. And of course, the main support is organized from the main university campus at Jalgaon. And here again, it's the same thing. You have the main hub at the Tribal Academy in Nandurbar, and then several Akruti centers surrounding, and they in turn are connected with their own self-help groups, the farmer producer organizations, and eventually we'll want to also connect them with schools. So I think we are kind of progressively moving on with this experiment to larger and larger scale. I'm not saying that this is a simple thing to do. It's very challenging. But I think as people see the benefits and see the impact, I think there is a transformation of minds, and that is what will sustain this program. So to capture all these things which I said so far, the silage architecture, in my view, an ideal silage architecture should begin with a tier 1 higher education institution. For example, at Pandharpur, the tier 1 institution was BARC. At the Gadchiroli, the tier 1 institution was IIT and MAFSU and universities like that. And at Nandurbar, the tier 1 institution would be the university at Jalgaon, and of course supported by all other institutions. That gets connected with the higher education institution which is located in rural domain. For example, Sweri at Pandharpur, or the STRC at Gondwana University, or the tribal academy at Nandurbar in case of Jalgaon University. And then you set up a self-sustaining technology and business resource center. It has been called by different names, STRC in Gadchiroli, and RHR DF in Pandharpur, Tribal Academy there. But there are Krishi Vigyan Kendras throughout the countries under the IARI setup. So framework of this kind where people can see the technology at work. At work, I'm saying, because this center should have its own business case, and also facilitate the backward and forward linkages along with common facilities that would be required for the Akruti centers spread in the neighborhood. So this becomes the main hub, backed up by the knowledge institutions, one at the local level, and if necessary, one tier 1 institution. And then this framework supports the akrutis, and you could have number of them kind of in a kind of in several nodes, and they get connected with self-help groups, farmer producer organizations, microfinance coming from financial institutions, and so on and so forth. But they also should get connected with the schools in the neighborhood, because I think linking school education with these activities hands-on in a variety of ways is also important. So if we do that, and we can approach this, as I said, not in a regimented fashion, but you can begin from wherever. NGOs can begin these activities. The local education institutions can begin these activities, or higher education institutions can begin these activities, seed them and then grow. So, so silage should turn out to be, in my view, best of city in a village, or a digital city in a modern village, or a knowledge-based ecosystem for integrated education, research, technology development and deployment, as well as livelihood and capacity building in rural areas. And I want to cite at this point two role models, and I'm sure all of you will be able to identify several role models which are already existing, where we have seen the benefit of this combined livelihood and knowledge initiatives taking place. One role model I want to cite is the Shri Vittalrao Joshi Charities Trust. They operate at a place called Savarde, and more specifically, there is a locality called Derwan in Savarde, which is very close to Chipron, which is a major city halfway between Bombay and Goa on the Bombay-Goa highway. Now they have been operating there with a lot of education activities at the school level. They also have been running a hospital, a major hospital. In fact, for many years, or maybe even now, the only major hospital between Bombay and Goa on that highway. They have recently started a medical college there, and they are providing excellent health and medical services in that area. More importantly, there are many activities related to agriculture and livelihood, and fantastic sports activity. They have actually an international level stadium, Olympic stadium there. And this has been going on for around 45 years. So medical director of that place, Dr. Suvarna Patil, I have been engaged with them, and they are aware of my interest in silage. So on one occasion, she wrote to me, and she brought out that the economy of Savarde village, which is where this place is located, and which is the nearer big town is Chiplun, which was of course the larger economy. But today economy of Savarde village, where it is located, has risen to 3 crores per month, which is actually larger than that of Chiplun for last few years. And now it has become a reverse. The people have started relocating to Savarde, and the demand for land at Savarde has increased tremendously. So in her mail, she writes, I witnessed decline in migration of rural population. This was around the time there was this distress migration as a result of pandemic. And she was, we are observing from city side. She was observing it from the rural side. And she says the decline, witnessed decline in migration of rural population during pandemic. Didn't see many people coming in there. In fact, many urbanites had already relocated themselves in villages. They have settled with their jobs here, The earn and learn scheme of our institute have taken leap after making technical education available to rural youth. In a true sense, Derwan and surrounding is a village, and I felt very much vindicated when I received this mail. The second example which I want to cite, which I have no contact with them, but this is what I read in newspaper and social media. And this is, you all must have heard about the Zoho Corporation. It's a major global corporation. They have a presence all over, but a major presence in United States, and they had their global headquarters at San Francisco. Some years back, their founder, Mr. Sridhar Vembu, he decided to move the headquarter from San Francisco to Tenkasi, a hamlet 650 kilometers from Chennai. And as of now, they have two rural offices, one in Tenkasi and the other in Renigunta in Andhra Pradesh, with 500 of its 9,300 employees globally working out of these places. And the plan is to have many more than of its 8,800 India-based employees working out of non-urban India. And I think this is a fantastic initiative on part of Mr. Vembu. The rural vision states to create small offices in rural areas and attract more local talent through Zoho University. They already set up a university, and he plans to train and employ rural youth for global business. So I think it's a, it's some kind of an ultimate thing which should happen. If Gandhiji was living today, what more he would have wished. And I think this is the way to carry out economic transformation of both the rural India as well as India as a whole. I almost come to the end of my presentation. Uh, as I said in the beginning, knowledge multiplies power of human beings. Now, it would lead to exploitation as it has happened mostly, and I think that is one of the problems for the disparity in the world. And that's because we all have some level of human instinct, and we get more empowered. That human instinct many times overtakes the animal instincts many times overtakes the human instinct. On the other hand, we are human beings, we are not animals. And so we have inculcated values, human values, and that instinct takes us to welfare. And I think there are several examples of great welfare measures, both on part of governments as well as on part of individuals, and of course, many institutions. And inculcating human values through mentoring and practice is the key to sustainable welfare societies, even as knowledge becomes the force multiplier for human capability. And this is very important because, as Gandhiji had said, there is enough on earth for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. And that brings me to my last slide. If you look at a domain consisting of society, economy, and knowledge. Now, society and economy, they invariably engage with each other because uh, without earning, one cannot live. Livelihood is very important. So that is always in engagement. Knowledge many times is not, as had happened in India, and it's still prevailing to a large extent. Knowledge has been sitting on a pedestal, whether it is in one of our, many of our elite universities, or whether it is through many of our spiritual leaders, or whether it is through many people who have become gurus or mahatmas or saints or whatever. Now, knowledge sitting on pedestal and not engaging sufficiently with society and economy, it actually promotes basically a transactional mindset which has to take place between society and economy, which is inevitable. But when knowledge starts engaging with society and economy in a very intimate way, which is what I think should be happening, more particularly in the knowledge era, then progressively transactional mindset, of course, transactional mindset would remain, but you also have a larger content of entrepreneurial mindset. And it is this mindset which actually promotes better values, which also takes the societies towards wisdom. And I think that is what should happen. The knowledge, instead of sitting on the pedestal, must penetrate down into the society, into the economy, whether it is for better technology to create higher level of economic activity, or to reduce disparities. Either way, I think that is what we should have, we should aim at. And so I think it's my strong suggestion, and I compliment SFRI for already being in this business, that our higher education institution, particularly the tier 1 education institution, must encourage this process. And I for one believe that the quality of knowledge activity in fact goes up rather than coming down. It's not as if you engage with village development, your knowledge activity or technology level will go down. Actually, you can do global scale work while engaging in that kind of activity. And I'm sure to this audience from IISc, I don't have to give examples. I'm sure you are into many of these things. So with this, I would like to thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kakodkar sir, for such an insightful talk.
I'll take off my my PPT.
Yeah, yes, sir, you can. So yeah, thank you for an insightful talk and sharing with us the concept of silage and how it is being implemented, and how is it being helping in the development of livelihood in rural areas. Now, as you mentioned about the collaboration of higher institutions with regional institutes like colleges and institutes, I would like to just mention that IIC has also been involved in teacher training program, like from the other campus that is present in Chalakiri. So as part of SFRA, we have also been trying to network with other similar groups or organizations which are involved in educational outreach.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now we, in the keeping the time constraint in mind, I think we have time for a few questions. So, as you mentioned, the importance of higher education in an ideal silage architecture. Now, we being a researcher in one of the premier institutes of India, so what is the role that an individual, as an individual, we can play in the outreach activity, especially in the rural area, keeping in mind the amount of limited resource we have? So it will be helpful if you can pay some attention to that.
Yeah, that's an important question, and I think we can handle this at multiple levels. I'm sure as individuals, many of you are engaged. You also mentioned that you are engaging with teachers in the institutions, educational institutions in rural areas. So certainly, as individuals or group of individuals, you can what you are doing already is the way, and of course you can explore more avenues. But I also know there was an activity which IISc used to run in terms of developing rural use or technologies which could benefit rural areas. And I think I know for IIT there is Sitara, IIT Delhi there is a similar program. And I'm sure there is an equivalent program at IISc. At least it was, I used to hear about it some years back. So that's an approach at the institutional level. And more importantly, I think, for example, say take the case of purification of water, or say safe drinking water. Now, safe drinking water can be looked at as a simple a kind of a problem which can be solved by good management and governance. Safe drinking water is a problem that can also be solved by marginal technologies, which are not great. They are all available. Everything is known, but that can be solved. But safe drinking water can also be solved by leveraging some high technologies. For example, there are several products based on nanocarbon, which can play a big role. There are, the electro-osmotic processes can make a big difference, and some of these products or technologies can be very cheap. I think same thing is true with respect to, say, emerging hydrogen economy or emerging the CCS and CCUS. I'm just taking an extreme example. Now, today they are all lab activities far away from the industrial technology level. But tomorrow, I think they can become activities which can be applied in rural areas, and there will be a lot of need to do capacity building of those people. And between that and see whatever activities are, there is a whole layer. So I'm saying there is a possibility of engagement at multiple levels, and we should attempt. I strongly believe that you can do Nobel class category, because Nobel it impact on knowledge activity and also impact in general, and that kind of a work can emerge out of this engagement, particularly when the higher level institutions like IISc are involved. And that is what we should aim at, not the run-of-the-mill technology support for villages. That, of course, is important, but much more can be done. That's how I look at it.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have another question. So, as you mentioned, like there is a big proportion of Indian population is still living in rural areas. So, and you brought out the importance of this outreach in, especially in the rural scenario. So, why is it that this science outreach or in general outreach activity is not given the required attention that it deserves?
Well, I think we being people in science institutions, we are all convinced that ultimately science is the basis of higher livelihood. But at the practical level, you look at people, let's say, look at people in villages, or even look at administrators who are running the development program, or even industry people who are doing business, and many of that business is in rural areas. They don't see that connection as clearly as we do. And that is because their views are quite myopic, short-sighted. They want to see what will happen in 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years. Now, and obviously we have not been successful in showing or demonstrating that this is making difference in such a short time. Now we have ourselves miles to go, but I'm sure, for example, if I had to cite some, say, take case of institutions like Stanford or other top-notch universities abroad, they have technologies, and many of them are operating in India because their deployment is in India, and they have technologies where people can see a big difference. In fact, I know one university there was working in Bengal, West Bengal, to show a whole pathology lab in a suitcase, which somebody could move on a motorbike and give state of art support to people in villages right in their place. Now, if you have demonstration of that kind, I think the whole mindset will change completely from what you described, which is actually a ground reality today. And that should be our objective. That is where we should move, I think.
So we have one question in the chat. So it is, you mentioned about the necessity of quality of equality of quality of education. What are some major areas of inequality that you could identify? Could you please share your experience with us?
Well, see, let me see, how shall I put it? See, one big importance is, see, we have digital divide, right?
Yes.
Particularly, in the sense there is an infrastructure problem, there is a problem of teachers who can, empowering teachers with digital technologies so that they can do this. So this experiment which I have mentioned at Sweri, Gopalpur near Pandharpur, first time when the tablets were taken, uh, the idea was these tablets were taken. The idea was to engage with teachers, expose them, uh, give them some training, and then engage with the students. The people who took, particularly IIT Bombay faculty, which took those tablets there, they told me that when they went and gave that tablet, and they said, okay, we'll tell you a few tips about how to start that tablet and use that tablet. The students, they were, both of them had not seen a tablet till that time. But the students, they grabbed the tablet from teacher's hands and said, Madam or Sir, I will try this, because that enthusiasm was there. And of course, there are people who had to tell them how to use, instructors. But the students, they raced ahead of their teachers and started operating those tablets. It was unbelievable. So the question is, I think we think that the knowledge depends on what we impart. We think knowledge is, it has to go from, but I think it's the environment which is more important. You just create opportunities in the environment, and human beings are capable of self-learning. So mentoring is of course necessary, and but we have that mindset that teacher, do as I tell you to do, don't do anything else. That doesn't take us anywhere. So, that was a great example for me, where something which I could never imagine that things could get picked up so fast. And there are many such things we can track about. I think we normally don't value the innate qualities of children, whether rural or urban, doesn't matter. And that is, so I thought I'll share this one example.
Yeah, sir. So I think you have been an inspiration, like for almost all of us, and you have made huge contribution, starting from, let's say, like in the development of atomic energy program for India. So, what has been your motivation, which has encouraged you in this direction?
Well, that is very interesting, and you have to sort of tolerate a bit lengthy answer.
Yeah.
See, as I was working on atomic energy, of course, on one side we had fuel constraints, so I got into politics of nuclear energy. Other side, we were talking about development of heavy water reactors, which we proved to be world class. We're working on fast breeder reactors, thorium reactors, advanced heavy water. We did a lot of work. It dawned on me at that time, and that was about 3 to 4 years before my retirement, that now we may have to drift apart from rest of the world, because the resource profile in India is quite different. So the nuclear power technologies, the way they will evolve in the rest of the world and India may be different. And then I started looking around, what is it that we have done which we can call original technology, first time ever. And then I find whatever we have done is a technology which has been developed by others, we have replicated it, which is important, which was not available. And then I tried to figure out what is the capability that we would require if we want to develop this capability, that we should be able to do technologies first time ever, which nobody has built in the world. And at least at that time, I couldn't find many examples of that kind of thing in India. Probably even now that is true. So it is in that context that attracted me to education. And so I started taking interest in higher education. And I'll not dwell on that, but to cut the long story short, I found that you can't do great things on higher education unless you concentrate on the totality of the youth force in the country. And so you have to concentrate on urban youth, but you must concentrate also on rural youth. It's important for the rapid growth of economy, as I mentioned in this talk, but it's also, leveraging the entire demographic dividend. That is very important. And that's where that attracted me to rural domain. And then these ideas emerged, and there is nothing new in this. This is, many experiments are being tried, as I myself showed you too, and IISc, there itself you will find 10 different examples, and I think all big education institutions have this. The idea is, can we organize them into a right ecosystem in villages where livelihood and quality education and research goes together, because both are important, and more important in the rural sense. So that's what brought me here.
Okay, sir, yeah, in the interest of time, sir, we'll move on to the last question. So what will be your message to the young generation like us? We are in the journey, we are learning now, we are moving on in the, like being a researcher in one of these institutes. Now we have to also at some point start serving the society. So what will be your message to all of us?
Well, I have great confidence in the youth of India, and I believe that the young generation is far more capable than our old generation, and that's my strong conviction. So it will be presumptuous on my part to give messages and all, but since you are asking, I would say just remain inquisitive and do whatever your mind and your heart tells you to do, and you will find the answer.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for your precious time and your kind words. So I think I'd like to thank both Dr. Anil Kakodkar sir and Dr. Anil Kumar for taking time from their schedule. And I would like to thank the audience for being patiently with us. And now before ending this meeting, I would like to mention that this is one of the talk in the series that we'll be keep on continuing and try to get in touch with more people and who have been working in this science outreach or in rural outreach activities. So hopefully we'll have those coming talks in the near future. So let's hope to see you all again. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I'll log out. Yeah, thank you.